What's up, Junkies? Welcome back in for another edition of Pigskin Junkies. A little doubleheader for you this week. Just Jared and myself on this one this week because we're talking college foosball. Big 12. I was about to say Big 10 because that's what it really is. But the Big 12 conference, totaling 10 teams. Jared and I both spent the majority of the time before the podcast, before the recording of this, figuring out how we were going to talk about everyone outside of the Red River rivalry matchup and their value to this league. And Jared, I guess we're not to judge a book by its cover, but if you were, how are we judging the Big 12?
This league sucks. I really don't think there's any. I mean, there's nothing here. I think Iowa State's pretty good. And they'll probably be like the trendy team that wins 9 games and just gets murked in the bowl game because they've played against an awful conference. And I think they're pretty soft in the non-conference as well, if I remember correctly. So, I mean, I actually like where their program is headed. I think I've said it 1,000 times on this show. I like their coach. There's nobody in this league, dude.
No.
There's nobody here. Holgerson, our boy's out at West Virginia. I don't want to steal too much of the thunder, but like, there's 2 critical coaches that leave. One that comes in that's pretty cool, but the team still blows. And Baylor is really the only potential surprise.
Oh. Baylor, just like a phoenix.
Over, go home.
Yeah, Baylor like a phoenix trying to rise from the ashes of.
Yeah,
there's just a lot of things going on at that university. That
they can do it. I mean, they're right there. Talk about a hotbed of recruiting. There's no shortage of talent like in their backyard, but whether or not they can get them to come there is another question.
It's true. So here come the Oklahoma Sooners trying to go. Well, what Lincoln Riley will be 4 for 4 if they make the playoff this year. Correct?
No, this is his 3rd year.
Oh, sorry. So 3 for 3
for 3.
They make the playoff this year, and now. Obviously,
all with transfer quarterbacks.
Exactly. Big question is Jalen Hurts getting his chance at starting quarterback. Once again, obviously, we've seen our fair share of Jalen Hurts after his time at Alabama. What do we think about this Sooner team? Because it's basically you flip a coin, I think, for a majority of people when they look at this conference and they go, well, is it Oklahoma or is it Texas?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Oklahoma heavy favorite as far as I'm concerned. I suppose we'll get into that a little bit when we talk about Texas. But, yeah, I'm excited to see the lid taken off of Jalen Hurts. I felt like at Alabama he was kind of always game manager, run for first down on 3rd and 5, never really take any shots down the field. And, again, some of that is just the style of offense and football that they play, which is fine. But I felt like there was a lot of time. I mean, I think people are underestimating how good he is. Mm-hmm. I was on hashtag Team Jalen last year. I think he's a better quarterback than Tua. And I can't wait to see him in Lincoln Riley's offense. I mean, this will be the 3rd year in a row where he's bringing in a former stud. Well, actually, 2nd year in a row because Baker Mayfield wasn't really anything, but from a recruiting perspective, I should say. And 2nd year in a row, he's going to get a dude with an arm that can run, and it'll be fun to watch. I mean, I think they're going to score in the 50s. I'm looking down the calendar, the schedule right now. Like this Houston game might be in the 60s. Just a pinball, not a pinball machine, just up and down, up and down. No one's going to stop anybody. So, I mean, this is, I think, talent-wise, probably the best team that Lincoln Riley's had, but. They beat the snot out of these teams all year, then they get in the playoff and exit stage left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you look at what Lincoln Riley's done with his offense. He's actually, their points per game has improved every single season in his tenure and when he was there as the offensive coordinator. And the guy knows what he's doing offensively. Defensively, they get rid of Mike Stoops. I think in the middle of the season, correct? They fired Mike Stoops?
Yeah. When you're giving up 60 a game, it's time. Someone's head's got to roll.
Exactly. So it'll be interesting to see how new defense coordinator Alex Grinch does. Obviously, improvements need to be made there. That's where, if they do make the playoff, they'll see. If they want to reap benefits from it, obviously, the defense is going to be what has to improve. I think offensively they're going to be the same, if not better, than what they were last year. And I think when you look at the season schedule, okay, you play at UCLA, which is, okay, great, a Power 5 matchup, but UCLA, as we've talked about, is hot, stinky
Garbage.
poop. So, I mean, you look at this schedule, I would normally circle October 26th as maybe, because it was at Schneiderville, but that now is a game that
I'm not saying that anymore.
I will never circle ever again. And Iowa State comes off of a bye, but they're traveling
to Norman.
So that doesn't freak me out as much as it would if it was reverse there. At Baylor, I think, Jared, you hinted towards that. November 16th could be one that maybe sneaks up on you. But if TCU, I think it depends on the year that TCU is having. If they're actually contending in that, they're kind of floating back behind Oklahoma and Texas, that they could backdoor their way into a Big 12 championship, I think that could be interesting. But if not, I don't see anywhere where you can really trip up on the schedule.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're going to be favored in every game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think Lincoln Riley's the best X's and O's coach in the country. Put aside all the program stuff that Saban is so good at, and even I think Kirby Smart is becoming good at, and Dabo. Dabo just drools on the clipboard and bring your guts, baby. Just gets in like stud players, and I refuse to believe that he's like a good X and O guy. Anyways, but that's beside the point. They're kicking at. They're kicking ass.
Kill Bama like that, yeah.
Think about what happened. Oklahoma basically pushed Bob Stoops, who will be a Hall of Famer, out the door because they're like, nah, we can't let this guy get out of here. So sorry, Bob. Grab your cleats, hang them up. We want you here. So I enjoy if you like watching a lot of points scored, you can tune in to Oklahoma games on Saturday afternoons, and you're going to have a great time. Yeah, I think they'll run the table. Again, I would bet the over. I think it's 10.5. It's crazy to say that, but again, I potentially they lose the Texas game and potentially at Baylor. Like I said, I'm really having a tough time finding multiple losses on the schedule. Mm-hmm. Keep saying calendar. I don't know why.
Got the business brain going. So we'll hop across to the other side of the Red River. And we'll go to Tom Herman, coach Texas Longhorns, who have been proclaimed back for, I believe, 5 seasons now. Is Texas back? Can Sam Ehlinger actually make a gigantic leap forward and take this Texas team back to Mac Brown, Colt McCoy era status? Vince Young.
I'm actually about as bearish as anyone I've heard on this team. Their win total's 9. I've already bet the under for a pretty good number. I think the Tom Herman stuff is overblown. It's his 3rd year here. They're 17-10 in 2 years. I hear a lot of hype before the season. They're back, and then miraculously they wind up with 4 losses at the end of the year. So it's just like I don't refute the fact, and there's a big distinction between not back and a bottom dweller. They're going to win 8 games and maybe even 9, and they're going to go to a good bowl, but I start looking at this calendar. There it is again. Schedule. They got LSU at West Virginia's no good. Oklahoma at Iowa State. I think there's some really tough games in there, and again, I think to say that they're going to win 2 out of those 3 and get over the 9 number, I think is tough. I do, in fairness, I do see a lot of scenarios where they win exactly 9 games. So if you can find that 9 and a hook, that's even juicier. But this is a team I will be betting under.
Yeah, I just don't know if they're there quite yet. We'll see September 7th. That one, and then obviously when you travel to Cotton Bowl October 12th, those are the 2 games. If you win those games, then I think you're definitely going to be looking at going to the playoff if you're Texas.
Hyperbole will be off the chain if they win those 2 games.
Yes. The hype train will be absolutely loaded down with people. It'll be pretty insane. But this is a Texas team, and like you said, Jared, 14, 15, and 16, were losing records. Now, 14 they were 6-6, went to a bowl game and lost. But I mean, 5-7 for 2015 and 2016 seasons, grabbing themselves by their bootstraps and finishing with a winning season in 17 with a 7-6 record. Last year they go 10-4. I mean, they're returning 5-ish players on offense and then 3 on defense.
I was gonna say, they're young.
Yeah, they're still very young.
Very young.
If this isn't the year, then I think next year for sure. But I just think Oklahoma has the experience. But if for those of you who have been a part of the show for the longevity of it now, 3 years, I have failed
all 9
to pick.
of you.
Yeah, I have failed to pick this Texas-Oklahoma matchup, I think, every single time, and they've played 4 times in these 3 years. And I'm always like, last time I picked them, they proved me wrong. So, yeah, fade me on this game. So, but, yeah, so we'll see.
Pick Texas, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think this is, to me, I look at this roster, and I look at who they have coming back, and I look at their schedule, and I say, if this team's Texas and isn't named Texas and their jerseys aren't burnt orange, this total's probably 7.5.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So pure value play for me. Could, again, this is gambling. There's a reason they call it that. Could they win 11 games, and will it be off the chain every week? Yes. But November 16th, watch out.
Yeah.
A lot of seasons ended in Ames in November.
Mm-hmm. Jared loves Ames. But I think if there's a team that I'm very excited to see where they go, and I think outside of your boy Lincoln, this guy has to be the argument for a great X's and O head coach, and that's Gary Patterson at TCU. This is a team I think early we'll see kind of what they're all about. They got Purdue in September for out-of-conference Power 5 matchup. I think if TCU has a good defense like they normally do under Patterson, they can maybe make some moves. Offensively, we'll see kind of what happens. Got a senior quarterback in Alex Delton. Jerry, what do you think about these Horned Frogs? And I guess what's the over-under for them this year?
I think it's 7.5 if I remember correctly. I'd have to look it back up. But Gary Patterson perennially does more with less than any coach in this conference. So I think they're appropriately placed. I'm looking at Phil Steele right now. I'm seeing them slotted for 3rd. I think it's a jump between them and Iowa State. Gary Patterson's been here 19 years. That's actually insane. Tough. And thankfully they get a bye because they do have a tough out-of-conference at Purdue. And then they have to go to Ames, but they do catch Texas at home before heading to Oklahoma. So I could see kind of that back part of the schedule, call it late October into November, them stealing one or a couple. If their number was 7, I'd probably like to play it over. I have a lot of confidence in the defense, and they finally got some continuity with Delton at quarterback, which they have struggled with over the last, let's call it 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you look at this team as well, the experience factor, I think, comes in for them. 7 returning on offense, 5 on defense. And last year, this was a team that was decimated early with injuries in their secondary, offensive line, quarterback, running back. So I think if you look at last year, you can go, okay, well, were they that great? They got absolutely obliterated by West Virginia. Bounced back, had some upset wins late in the season. But, it'll be interesting to see what happens for Patterson. This is a team that, like I was saying earlier, I think if they can hang in there and beat the teams they're supposed to beat, they might be able to backdoor this way in and shock everyone. But outside of that, I think that's where the interest of this league falls apart outside of these 3 teams.
Oh, disagree.
Ooh, here we go.
The next one.
The next team. Matt Campbell, Micah and Jared's favorite coach, who when Gus Malzahn leaves, we're just going to...
He's not going to leave.
I know he's not leaving Iowa State. But a man can dream. O'Grady's going to freak out when he hears us talking about him leaving. So.
That would be 2 for 2 scooping head coaches. Maybe Matt Campbell would give us a national title as well.
but then he'd actually be good at coaching afterwards.
The cheeser. Is he still on TV?
He stepped down. He was a DC at North Carolina.
I didn't know that.
And
did he go back on TV?
No. So he took the year off, and he watched his son play his senior year of football at Auburn High.
Lives in Auburn.
He does, along with Pat Dye and Tommy Tupperville. So
Tupperville's running for Senate.
He is. And who is the OC for Tupperville?
Al Borges.
Gorgeous Borges was living in town too for a little while, but I think he took a job somewhere else. But anywho, that was a quick side note. So Gene Chizik was hired from Iowa State to be the head coach at Auburn, and that one made no sense to a lot of Auburn fans at the time who were not happy because Chizik's record at Iowa State wasn't exactly the most amazing thing in the world. But so Cyclones, 8 returners are on offense, 8 returners on defense. Seems like these guys always have a receiver that can come out there and absolutely dominate on the edge, just height and athleticism. And I think you have that in Deshaunte Jones. I think he'll be a high receiver coming out of the draft this year. But
DeJounte, like the mustard.
Oh, sorry.
Get it right.
LaDasha. L-A-A.
I'm kidding. I actually don't know how to say his name, but it's in my head. I want to say DeJounte.
Yeah, I'm going to go with how I pronounced it. So, anyway, Jared, let's hear it. I know you love you some Cyclones football. Let's hear it.
Yeah, defense is stacked. 8 guys back, as Mike alluded to. Matt Campbell, defensive-minded head coach. I think they're actually going to be able to stop quite a few people in this league, which is notorious for points. The 8 starters back on offense is a little bit of a misnomer because they lose stud leading rusher David Montgomery. They also lose Hakeem Butler, who I love and loved and caught a lot of deep balls last year from my guy Brock Purdy, who is returning as a sophomore, had a fantastic freshman season, so I would expect him to continue to progress. They get Iowa at home this year, and whatever they play for, some corn trophy, I'm sure. Unfortunately, they do have to go at Oklahoma. So, as I alluded to, I think that's a loss. If they'd have got them in Ames, I think that's a little bit different. Brutal scheduling here where they actually have Oklahoma and Texas in back-to-back weeks. So a tough break. They got to go on the road and they come back home and take on Texas. So I do like them to win 8 or 9 games again this season. Really tough break with the schedule. Their number, I believe, is 6.5. I will be playing the over. I will confirm that, but I'll be playing the over on Iowa State if 6.5.
Yeah, so just a little nugget of information here on what Matt Campbell's been able to do with the Cyclones. From 1979 to 2016, Iowa State had one season of 8 or more wins. They've now gone back-to-back 8-win seasons under Matt Campbell. And
going to do it again.
Yeah, and this is one of the most experienced teams, I think, returning in college football. I know that our boy Phil Steele does rankings for it, and he has them as the number 18 experienced team in all of college football. So
18 or 8th team?
18. 1-8.
Okay. Yeah. Got it.
So it'll be interesting year for them.
I think they're good. Let's see.
You hit
I don't see the total.
Yeah, they allowed just 20.9 points per game last year defensively. And against Oklahoma State, I think this is an unbelievable stat. They had 7 sacks from 7 different players. 16 tackles for a loss. So this is a team that gets after it defensively. And they're pretty fun to watch. So I'm with Jared on this one. I think they're an interesting team, but I think because of the draw of their schedule and those back-to-back games, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, agreed. Next one is the aforementioned Baylor Bears. Sick 'em Bears.
Matt Rule at quarterback, at head coach.
Matt Rule. Yeah, these guys are peeling themselves up off the mat from, I want to say prohibition, and that's the wrong thing. My brain is not firing tonight, folks. Prohibition. Man, they probably can't trick at Baylor. I think now that I'm thinking about it, that's like they don't want you doing any of that stuff.
There's no one word that sums up everything that's happened at Baylor. So
Kendall Briles seemed to have found a job at just up the road in Tallahassee. Actually, bringing back 8 on offense. I like the grit that Matt Rule has as a head coach. He brought a Temple team who has historically been absolute trash into the top of that league to compete with our favorite team, the UCF Golden Knights, or whatever the heck they're called these days, Fighting Knights or some stupid. Yeah.
UCF
Anyways, just
the Knights.
I mean, they play nobody. Stephen F. Austin, Texas San Antonio, and then at Rice in the non-conference. I think that'll help them get their win total up, and I do think that they can compete for a bowl. Another brutal schedule. Despite the fact they get both of them at home, they have to play Oklahoma and Texas in back-to-back weeks. And actually, now that I'm looking at it, at TCU, Oklahoma at home, Texas at home, all in the month, the first 3 weeks of November. So this will be a team that hopefully is undefeated headed into a game like that, or maybe one loss, and I can get a nice price as they run through Murderer's Row there in early November.
Yeah, this will be. I think this is a team that's more you're just watching to see. They had to do a whole rebranding last year. I think one of my favorite highlights was Matt Rule. I think it was the first game of the season, had him out there doing like bull in the ring drills. And if that doesn't scream, I played linebacker at Penn State, I don't know what else does.
Yeah. It's 2019, dude. Like, take it easy.
Can't be doing that anymore. But Baylor's, I think this year they continue to build that identity. Obviously, a lot of players coming back. Big thing you look at Baylor is quarterback with the players they've had, Petty, Stidham.
I was going to say, our guy.
Yeah. But Charlie Brewer going into his junior season, be interested to see how he does. I think this is an offense that is always going to be fun to watch. They averaged 24.3 points last year, which isn't excuse me. That was Matt Rule's first year, and then he jumped up to 29.3 the following season. Obviously, if you want to win in the Big 12, you got to score points. So, because I don't think Baylor's going to have the defense to stop somebody like an Iowa State or a TCU. So, if they can figure out the offense, but I think this is a team that if you win 6 games, you go to a bowl game, you're pretty happy with your season.
Ooh, maybe you might take a little taste then. 7 under is plus 150 for Baylor. Again, I think a lot of that has to do with just a putrid September. I mean, they should no question start in 3-0. Mm-hmm. And then you figure Kansas, that's a 4th one right there.
And then maybe Kansas State, but we'll get into that.
Oh, Iowa State, the number is 8. So that's it's tough.
Yeah, that's right on the button.
Right on the screws.
So we're going to head out to Stillwater now.
Micah's boys.
Yes.
For being such a shit conference, you and I both got a couple teams that we like to watch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's growing up on Big Ten football and then moving to the SEC in the prime of defense. You know, the Big Ten, they didn't score because they just ran I formation and just possessed the ball the whole time. SEC didn't score because they just had professional football players on the defensive side of the ball.
Dudes.
Yeah. It's fun occasionally to sit down on the couch and just watch people chuck a football 70 yards and they catch it and score a touchdown.
Yeah, ping pong ball.
Yeah, so it's just a nice switch up, and who can't like the mullet and old Mike Gundy going into his 15th year at
That's what I said.
State. Unbelievable.
Or thought. Yeah, how does that make you feel?
Yeah. Come at me, I'm a man. I'm 40.
He took over for Les. Had to have been.
Yeah. Wow.
We'll get back to him in just a minute.
Yeah, foreshadowing. Nice job, Jared. So, 7 returners on offense for Oklahoma State?
No, 7 is the win total. No interest.
And you're saying their over-under is 7?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Ooh. They open with Oregon State, so you'd think that's a win. McNeese State, Tulsa. Mm-hmm. Our boy Rhett Lashley's out there these days. Then you go Texas at Texas, and then you end the season obviously with the what do they call it? Why am I blanking on it?
Bedlam.
There it is.
They're gonna get boat raced.
That game is always fun to watch because that's just 1,000 points scored
I
every
agree.
single time they go out there. For this conference, the way it is, I think every person we've gone to, we've been like, the coach ain't a bad coach. We like him, we like this, we like that, but for some reason they just can't seem to figure it out. The question for these guys, and I think this is where it's going to hurt them, is they got a redshirt freshman, Spencer Sanders, starting at QB, where OSU's always been known for having a quarterback that is just going to come out here and sling the rock. And there's no saying that he can't, but
You just don't know.
you don't know. And so for that, I think Jared and I are both just going to say, we're going to stay away from this one and move on from there. They're young. I mean, you got Chuba Hubbard as well, sophomore running back. So they're young in the backfield. I think maybe next year or the year after you can look at this team and go, okay. But
Yeah, they usually recruit pretty well, and I think that is a testament to the coaching and kind of what we're talking about here, where they got a bunch of coaches that are pretty good, and I think they just beat up each other, and they kind of take their turns revolving for that second-place door behind Oklahoma. Yeah, I mean, I think 7 is a good number here. I think them winning 8 games, you got, at least in my head, Texas loss, at Iowa State loss, and then Oklahoma loss as well. So you only got room for one more if you want to go over the number. And to Micah's point, just too much uncertainty in the backfield to play that number.
yeah. Next, we're going to head out to Lubbock, Texas, which I have a buddy who's a GA on this team. And I said, what is there to do in Lubbock? He said,
Nothing.
absolutely nothing. We're so far away from literally everything. The pretty man is no longer at Texas Tech. He's out there coaching in the NFL now, which still makes no sense to me. But Matt Wells coming over from Utah State, who did a very good job with that program. I believe he was the head coach of that team when they almost – that would be
Gary Anderson.
Yep. When they almost upset the Auburn Tigers after they won their national championship on the Plains. But Utah State – it did a great job with that program. Now he comes in to take over Texas Tech, who has not had a shortage of talent, but has not really had national contention.
Yeah, these guys got no players.
Yeah, since Crabtree and Graham Harrell were on the team, and the greatest coach in college football, Mike Leach.
I was going to say, ever since the mad scientist left, they've gone straight in the toilet. I have it on high authority that Matt Wells' family is absolutely miserable in Lubbock, and that's coming from Logan, Utah. So that tells you just how little there is to do in Lubbock, Texas. I agree with Mike. I think he's a really good coach. I just try not to see too far into the future here, but I just unfortunately see this as a 3 years and out because he can't get any talent to come out to West Texas, and they're in a league with some pretty good teams and just can't ever compete. I'll be interested to see what he tries to establish as an identity, because you had Mike Leach, then you had Kingsbury, all with the air raid and air raid disciples, of which Matt is not. Actually, he's my best friend. Matt Wells is not an air raid disciple. So the question becomes, what type of culture does he decide to establish? Is this a Matt rule? Now, they had probation and a few other things working against them, but is this something where you see significant regression, playing a lot of young guys at Texas Tech in Lubbock?
Yeah.
Number 6.5. No interest.
Yeah. Alan Bowman, I
Under
think
pass.
is actually going to be fun to watch. And I know we talked about how horrible Houston is, but he did break Pat Mahomes' record in his first game, or in his second start, with 605 passing yards against Houston. So
Jeez.
that's pretty impressive. He wasn't
Video
named
game.
the starter at the start of the season, but their starting quarterback got hurt. So true freshman Alan Bowman got the go, and now he's coming back for his sophomore season. So, I think you have stability at the quarterback position, but you got a new offense, and you got a sophomore quarterback and a sophomore running back with Henry. Pretty experienced offensive line, mostly juniors and seniors, but, defensively, I don't think Texas Tech has ever been able to stop a nosebleed. So,
No.
If I were to gun to my head, I would say probably the under on that. So we're going to go now to Manhattan, Kansas, no longer Schneiderville. And
sad day.
It is really a sad day. So
he's probably going to be dead in like 2 years.
Yeah.
Might not even take that long.
So our boy from North
Unless
Dakota
he comes
State,
back for the hero move again and is like, you suck. Get out of here. My name's on the stadium. Goodbye.
So
you're fired.
I gotta. How do I say this man last name? Is it Kleiman or Kleiman?
I think it's Kleiman. Kleiman. He's German, I think.
Yeah. So obviously, winning games at North Dakota State, winning championships, gonna be a little different ball game. Taking over a program that hasn't been able to do anything when Schneider wasn't roaming the sidelines for them. Of all the teams in this league, I think I like their jersey scheme and logo the most. It's very old school and plain. I know it doesn't matter, but Jared hates that stuff. But I always liked their
Mike
logo.
and his jerseys.
Hey, I didn't talk about TCU's new uniforms, but they did a nice combo of the throwbacks to when LT was there. But anywho, anything major on Kansas State, Jared, for you?
No. Kleeman was successful coming in at after I forget the name of the guy that was there last at North Dakota State that was very successful. So I don't think he's afraid. I also don't think that means he'll be able to dominate. I mean, yeah, the guy that's at Wyoming has been pretty successful, but Mountain West is a little bit different of a league than the Big 12. So, I mean, look, if the guy can get kids to come to wherever Fargo or Bismarck or wherever the hell that place is, he can probably get them to come to Manhattan, Kansas too. Question is, do you believe that a really good 1AA team is good enough to compete in the Big 12? Probably not. So if he can get some other kids there, then yeah, I think they'll be able to build something. But this is year one. They got to go to Texas. Oklahoma comes to town, is going to boat race them. And they got to go to Stark Vegas and play Mississippi State, and that will be baptism by fire for this guy.
I think my favorite sentence when I was reading through this Phil Steele's prediction for the season and kind of doing my research for this, he says, Kansas State has my number 4 rated Big 12 defense. And that's like saying,
midget.
when it comes to dying, I wouldn't mind if my body was eaten by rats. That's not a compliment. Like, yeah, you're number 4, but
Correct.
out of 10, and they're all horrible. So, with the exception of Jared's Iowa State Cyclones.
Yeah, they're good.
Although I will say, when you got a QB named Skylar Thompson, I mean, that's a good QB name. That's up there.
He's terrible. I watched him like 4 games last year.
But it's a good QB.
He literally cannot throw the ball. Cannot throw. Zero threat to throw the ball.
So we're going to move to old John Denver's territory. Yeah, it's him running. We're going to join John Denver. We're going to take our country road home to Morgantown, West Virginia, talk about the Mountaineers. And this team has 3 offensive starters returning, 6 defensive starters returning. They lost their head coach in Holgerson, obviously. Neil Brown leaving Troy, coming to who did a very good job at Troy. Troy was a very good team.
I like Troy.
But I think he's got a very tall task ahead of him for this season.
He'll get some kids up there.
I think they're not bad, but I think he's just, it's going to take a minute. Will Greer's gone, and that was
they got nobody
team.
this year. They got nobody.
Yeah.
And they got a pretty brutal schedule. They got to go to Mizzou and NC State at home in the non-conference. They do get Texas and Iowa State at home, but then travel to Oklahoma in 3 consecutive weeks. So, what the heck? These scheduler people love to just brutalize these other teams. Like, I think they're incentive. I think they're trying to put, and it's all Oklahoma, Texas. I think they're trying to put Oklahoma in the title game.
Yeah, they're trying to they need to make sure somebody gets in.
Somebody
to
good.
The playoff.
Yeah, somebody get in there. I actually like the things that Troy has done with Neil Brown as head coach. They beat LSU. They beat. There's one other game that's not coming to me. I think they'll surprise some teams. I think the
Mississippi
problem
State.
with a lot of these,
No, that was South Alabama. Sorry. Did they beat them too?
I think it might have been Florida. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, they definitely contended with Florida a couple times. I think the challenge that these coaches have when they step up in league is you are now the other team's ready for you. This isn't like a September morning sleepy time game where you can sneak up on people and you can play the motivation nobody respects you thing. That goes out the window when you're in a league like this. So I think that's really where these coaches struggle. I'll be interested to see if he's able to motivate the players on a week in, week out basis, because I do think he'll get up there because he was able to get kids to Troy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you can get kids to Troy, you can get exactly.
Yeah.
Would you like to share the win total for 5?
No interest.
Yeah. Ooh.
They get James Madison. They got Kansas. I mean, they're not terrible, but I don't know. Well,
I might take the under on that if I'm being honest. I think you get James Madison. Missouri, I think is good.
James Madison's pretty good.
Missouri will be good with Bryant. NC State's good. I think you win Kansas, so there's 2.
Murderer's row here.
Yeah, Texas, Iowa State, Oklahoma. Then you have a bye week where you just lick your wounds and crawl into a hole. Baylor on a Thursday night.
Baylor, that's a tough scheduling spot.
I think Texas Tech, you could maybe steal one, so that's 4. No, that's
2.
3. That's 3. If you throw James Madison, Kansas, Tech, K-State, so that's 4. 4.
Yeah, I would be much more interested in the under than I would the over. Mm-hmm. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And at 5, I think you get some push equity there too.
And Austin Kendall, huge shoes to fill for with Will Grier leaving. That guy was
bastard.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to fill in for Will Grier. So here we are, and we're about to talk basketball and eating grass. Les Miles is back, and he is going to Lawrence, Kansas, to coach the Kansas Jayhawks. I can't believe it.
He must have been really bored. He's like 65, dude.
Yeah, he's not young.
Like, all right, man, just give it up, or go do a TV job, or like call games or something. Do you really? What's the point?
I think
you're not going to build a national title contender. You're not going to do anything. They're going to pay. You're going to win a couple games, and they're going to pay you a lot of money.
Yeah,
sweet. I don't get it.
I
just don't get it.
There's not much else to say about this team. I was reminded the other day that this team won an Orange Bowl not too long ago, and that really...
Yeah, with Fat Man, with Mangino.
With Charlie Cheeseburger.
No.
Oh,
Mark
my gosh.
Mangino.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Charlie Weiss was here, and they were awful.
Yeah.
They got an affinity for hiring some big-name guys.
It's unbelievable.
And then just getting crushed.
When they're horrible. That's true.
Yeah, they did. I was like, I guess Auburn went to the Final Four for basketball this year. That's probably what the Kansas fans felt like. Like, hey, we're good. Cool. Yeah. Okay, back into the dumpster.
Yeah. It'll be... Yeah, I just don't know. There's not even information to share on this team. It doesn't matter what their schedule is.
There's no talent. Well, you're talking about 1 and 2 stars, dude. Yeah, sure. I'm sure some of them will be good, but on the aggregate, no bueno.
Every blue moon, you get in Aqib Talib.
Yeah, but that's what I mean.
Yeah, every blue moon.
Yeah, you get really good players, and then they just disappear because the rest of the team is such garbage.
Hey, but Kansas still licking their wounds after losing to Auburn in basketball. Oh yeah, and that's talking Kansas.
We got all the blue bloods.
We did
this year.
We were thirsty.
Kentucky, UNC, Kansas.
Should have beat Virginia. Anyway,
I know.
We're not going to talk about it because it's a football podcast. But
don't pour salt in the wounds.
When you talk Kansas, it's hard not to talk about basketball because there's nothing to talk about on their football team. So we're not even going to talk about it anymore. But we've hit our limit here, Jared. So that's the Big 12. Next time we're going to be talking Big 10. As you know, we're slowly making our way east and then south. So it'll always end with the SEC with this podcast. And when that one comes out, you better buckle down because it's going to be like 2 hours.
Yeah. Locked in.
Lots to say about a lot of teams. So
yeah, for all you other idiots that are fans of other conferences, it doesn't matter.
Well, most of the people who listen to our podcast, I think all they care about is the SEC anyway.
Yeah, right. And the All Clemson Conference.
Yes,
the ACC.
That's true. And we're going to try and get Brad Miller back on the podcast to talk Clemson football. He said he's down. First ever returning guest of the podcast will be.
Brad was ready. He brought it last year. He had the Clemson takes.
He knows his Clemson football. We might have to.
Not so much on BC or like NC State, but he had Clemson like in the 5 deeps.
Oh yeah, he knows the freshman coming in 2 classes from him.
Yeah,
pretty impressive. So that's going to do it for this week's edition of Pigskin Junkies. I got to stop saying this week's edition. This edition, because we have multiple podcasts coming out right now.
We're a multi-channel machine.
We're cranking them out. Please continue to subscribe, rate, review, tweet us, tweet us, whatever one you want to think I said there, and then and we'll keep this train going. Soon, it's next week. We're gearing up for real football, so we're gonna have to. We got 3 more podcasts to shoot out at you, and which Miami making some headlines today, but we'll talk about that in a little bit later.
I was gonna say that's in a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. Can't wait for that one.
I'm licking my chops. So. For myself, Michael Larson, the big brother, Jared Larson, we are out of here, Junkies. Have a great rest of your week. Peace.
See ya.